All right, I know I'm still a little bit dark here, but we're going to make this work. Welcome to episode 2. Today we're going to focus on some word clues or fundamentals of how some words are made. So when you hear or read words you don't know, you can make a really good guess at the meaning. English comes from a mix of Germanic roots, like, from Germany, as well as Latin roots from Old Rome. And this is why in English there seems to be two words for a lot of things. For example, in Germanic you have something like car, which means like a horse-drawn carriage. Carriage, I can't spell. And then also, on the other hand, you have a Latin root, like automobile. It kind of means the same thing. I think in Japanese you'd have like jidosha and kuruma. In English you have kind of the same thing, because it also came from two different languages. So I want to do a few episodes on word roots to show some common word patterns and also use this to improve your vocabulary. So today's episode we're going to focus on prefixes that mean not. Now there are three different prefixes that we're going to be going over. There's non, there's a, and there's also un. Now I know that in Japanese, when you study Japanese, you reach a point where you run into two different prefixes. The first one is mu, and the second one is fu. Now eventually you get tested on these, and you see a list and you say which one of these words start with mu and which one of these start with fu, and you have to pick from a big list. There's also other ones too, but I can't think of them right now. And so in English it's kind of the same way. There's many different types of prefixes that mean not. So I'm going to go over a few of the different ones, a few of the different nuances, and then hopefully when you encounter new words, maybe you don't know, or maybe you can make up words on your own, you'll be able to see what they mean. So the first one I want to do is non. Now non has like common words like a non-verbal. Non-dairy. Non-existent. Non-fat. Now, like, for example, because not means no, or sorry, non means not or no. So in these examples, non-verbal means not verbal. You would just use, now you wouldn't be using words to communicate. So somebody that uses their body a lot to talk, they use a lot of non-verbal communication. The second one here, back this up. The second one is non-dairy. It's not milk. It didn't come from a cow because it's not dairy. Not dairy. You also have something like non-existent. I think I might have spelled this wrong. It doesn't exist. I can't find a Nintendo Switch anywhere. It's like it's non-existent. This might be with an E. No, I think it's an A. Then the last one is like non-gamer. Oh, I like that better than non-fat. Oh, it's way too small. Oh gosh, that's huge. Something like a non-gamer. I'm a non-gamer. I don't play video games. I'm not a gamer. You'll also notice that a lot of food words are for non. So if you go to the grocery store, you'll see words like non-sugar. Or not, like I said, non-dairy. Non-fat. No, it's not fat. non-fat. So yeah, grocery store words. The second prefix I want to do is a. Oh, there's a dot on my face. A. Now again, a, like non, it generally means not. It also pairs with words to give you opposites. So some common words would be like atypical or apolitical, an atheist or asexual. And so if we look at these words, they kind of have the same thing. Atypical means not typical. It's a rare thing. It's atypical. If something is apolitical, I'm having a hard time with my pen today. If something is apolitical, it's not political. My office is pretty apolitical. We get along well. There's no structure. Dinner conversation was apolitical. Someone might be an atheist. They are not a theist, which means they do not believe in God. Or you might have something like someone who is asexual. They are not sexual. They have no interest in sex or sexuality. Now, these words are they're almost scientific, and because they're direct opposites, they're kind of words that you'll hear on the news, and they might read in a newspaper, or also hear in a lecture. The last set of words I want to talk about is un. Un is a little bit different. It still means not. But think about things like, let me move over here. Think like a state of being. If this is like a continuum, where at this point you have like yes. And then from here to here, it's the un range. Where something is from 0% up into yes, it's still un. And so all the words that come before un are some state of being. This will make more sense when I give you a few examples. So it's un. So you have a word like unbalanced or unhappy. How about unqualified? Unusual. Okay. So, for example, unbalanced. Now, something can be balanced. You know, here we got that nice little thing. Oh, I like how I'm drawing things flat here. Okay. Okay, so something can be balanced. It also can be a little unbalanced, or it can be a lot unbalanced. I like how I can't draw this either. And because this is 100%, and here we have a range of not balanced. So since balance is a state of being, unbalanced is just you're not in that state. So the same thing we have is unhappy. You could be happy, but you can also be unhappy, like a state. I'm a little unhappy with the weather, or I'm really unhappy with how much my power bill was. This also works for something like unqualified. They need qualifications A, B, C, D, and E to get a job at my company. This person has A, C, and E. They're unqualified because they don't have B and D. And they can, maybe they only have A, so they're very unqualified. Or they have everything except for E, so they're slightly unqualified. I guess it's like unusual. So usual means typical or regular. So unusual would mean strange. It's not usual. So and pretty much any unword can have a range from. So again, like I said, if this is like 100%, before it gets to this point where it's like, oh yeah, you are this state, you can be a little unqualified. You can be very unqualified. You can be extremely unqualified. And you need to use a word. Usually, when you say an unword, give it an adverb to go with it, so that you can explain to the person you're talking to exactly where it falls on this spectrum. Okay? So, as a little bit of a recap, words that start with non just mean not X. And they're usually food words. You have something like a, which just means the opposite. Atypical, not typical. Also, A words are kind of strict, and they're almost scientific. And then lastly, you have un words. And they're like a state. A state or a condition. You want to use an adverb with these ones. Like very or completely, or barely. I'm barely unhappy. I'm completely unready. And also on top of this, we're not going to cover these tonight, but there's also anti, there's dis, and then there's also a lot of words that start with the letter I, like im, in. And again, these all mean not in their own different ways. And maybe I'll go over these in a later episode. Anyway, so thank you very much. If you have any questions, post them below and I'll take my time and try to answer them. Happy watching. See you next time.